All right, so we are live. Okay, so today we're going to do things a bit differently from recent recordings. As I said, the purpose of this podcast is to talk about all things that affect our health, the truly holistic spread across physical, mental, and everything else. So today we're going to talk to FJ Smith all about mindset, goal setting, and that broader picture when it comes to clarity for your mental health, your professional and personal success. And full disclosure, FJ and I have known each other for a while because she's been a client of mine in the past. So fellow dog lover and Linkin Park fan. Hello, FJ.
Check this out. Shrunk.
Where and what is your sweat equity? What measures are you prepared to invest in yourself? Because that's what it is, folks. A higher quality of life and improvements in your quality of life and your health are an investment. Newsflash, everybody, you're always on a diet. I want you to view this as mental fitness.
As we all know, aesthetics are not health.
If we're absolutely honest, anyone that embarks on a diet is looking to reduce their body fat, not their weight. Weight is just mass. I can take 5 kilos off you with a chainsaw. You won't be any healthier, but you'll have reached your goal.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I like the Linkin Park intro.
Yeah, well, you know, you can't count it all as a stuffy and boring thing. Right, so I know who you are and what you do. So tell us a bit about yourself from your origins and right up to where you are now. The floor is yours.
Sure. So I'm an exec coach. Primarily, I worked with corporates for the past 12 years across the globe. But I spotted a gap in the market in terms of students, that we don't do enough in actually preparing students, graduates, to come into the corporate world. And I put the corporate world in a whole gamut of everything from healthcare, engineering, finance, sports world, everything, you know, just put it under one umbrella. Mm-hmm. And as the professionals, we expect them to come in and hit the ground running. Now, from a mindset point of view, that's a bit of a head wreck, right?
Yeah.
How are you supposed to know everything and have this expectation and these gremlins inside your head saying, what if I get it wrong? What if I get fired from this job or this graduate scheme? So I decided to focus on working with young adults and actually their parents and helping them with their career pathways and that whole mindset around their choices that they make. Before I moved to Dubai, I was in London for 10 years and I was heading up recruitment at Lloyds of London, one of the world's largest insurance market. And I'd worked in a variety of banking and financial institutes, either doing HR transformation projects, recruitment projects, or running the graduate scheme programs for them. So obviously my accent is Scottish from Glasgow originally.
In case you hadn't noticed.
In case you hadn't noticed. If I speak too fast, then give me a kick
that's
under
no
the table. But where I am now, I've massively grown, I suppose, within my career. I started off in recruitment, good old agency recruiter, and then progressed from there. Moved out to Dubai 5 years ago and absolutely loving it. The market here is really booming, but it's also booming for women. And they're putting a lot of emphasis on startups, which I'm sure you're well aware of.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yes. So you come from the corporate world, going through recruiting and HR, because like I said, I've been doing my swatting up on you in the background, even though I've known you for quite some time. And you've moved into working with still with graduates, I suppose, but also looking at, as young adults, prepping them for moving into higher education and their internship work or future employment. Yeah. What made you decide to take the decision from, I mean, to be honest, what I assume is a higher paid executive coaching, teaching kind of thing, looking at graduates, postgrad work, into younger generations? Because I can see the reward there and I can see the value in what you do. What made you think about making that shift?
The high paid salary was no longer fulfilling me.
Right, okay.
And I thought, why aren't we doing more to help them? Mm-hmm. And actually, there's only so much you can buy, right?
Yeah, that's very true.
There's only so
very
much
true.
you can buy, which if anyone who knows me is listening to this will be really laughing at this point, because they're well used to me going into Jimmy Choo at lunchtime and buying a couple of pairs of shoes. That hasn't been for some time now. And I'm really happy with that. I'm happy with my choice.
Right.
For me, the mindset, work is so very important. And for me, it's about doing something to make a difference in the world.
Right. Okay.
And if that's working with young adults and their parents, and, you know, I don't earn as much financially, I'll by hell make more from a knowledge point of view, a passion point of view. And for me, that's a lot more important than finances.
Okay, good. I mean, it's refreshing to hear that, especially in, I mean, let's face it, where we're living in Dubai, because if you look around, finance or price seems to set a lot of the lifestyle and how things work here, because it's a very, very quickly growing, expanding part of the world. So it's kind of refreshing. I mean, I know you personally, but it's refreshing to hear you in a professional context say that money is not your sole motivator.
Yeah, because we all drive Lamborghinis and you know, have gold-plated toilet paper.
Absolutely.
Here, right?
I got dropped off in my chauffeur-driven Bentley just come here this morning. But no, yeah, it's very much a factor. Like I say, I did hear someone a while back who works in my field say, you know, if I wanted to get wealthy and be happy, I'd be selling chocolate.
Yeah.
You know, I do what I do because I've been an athlete and a soldier, and I very much value the idea of looking at people's health mentally and physically and helping other people grow. Coming from a point of poor health or poor knowledge or injury, you're doing that in a mental aspect, building people up for their careers or their future education. So I can really see the value of doing that.
Look, massively. And even recently, there's someone that I know who's extremely successful. He is a global leader within a global bank. And let's just leave him there. And I coached him and his team some time ago, and we've always kept in touch over the years. And he's recently written to me saying that, you know, he's absolutely devastated. He didn't get another role that he was going for. And I'm thinking, my God, this guy's already so successful.
Yeah.
You know, and no matter what you do or what age you are, you're always going to have that self-doubt.
Sure.
And for me, what is great is when someone reaches out and says, I did it. Thank you so much. You know, it's a privilege to be part of someone's journey, you know, and it's a real sacred ground that you work with them on,
Sure.
you know, within a coaching, you know, aspect. But people trust you with their innermost darkest secrets. And whenever you can watch behind the sidelines, no one knows that you've worked with them. I love that. I love that privacy part.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not doing it to, you know, be in the limelight with them. I'm doing it for my pride on the sidelines, watching them, and watching someone grow is just awesome.
Yeah, no, I can completely agree with that. So we don't do this job, you and I, different jobs, but in a similar kind of role, helping people grow.
Yeah.
Despite what Instagram will tell everybody out there listening, we don't do this for our own personal aggrandizement, or whatever. Yeah, I can't get the word right. Grandiose, yeah, exactly. We don't do it to put ourselves up on a hill and go, hey, look at us. No. It very much is not that role. I mean, you've only got to take the example of the fact that it's the 15th of November today, recording. And I watched the Formula One Grand Prix yesterday. Now, there's a lady called Angela who follows Lewis Hamilton around the world. She's his physio and trainer. Most people don't know she exists. But he credits her with pretty much all that he's able to do. Because she manages his life in his day-to-day, especially at a race event. But she's everywhere. Yeah. You know, so the idea of being part of someone's success, that is why we do what we do. And I think for a lot of people who do succeed, they have those people they rely on because they need that person to bring them out of their own sense of self-doubt. That imposter syndrome that we now know is a popular a phrase that does creep in. To go, I don't know if I can do this, or should I even be attempting it? Do I belong in this field? I've got these lofty ideas, which may not be that lofty, but they're beyond what they currently can do. Whether that's, like you just said there, Mr. Corporate, high achiever, or the 18, 19-year-old who goes, I really want that career, but am I even suitable for it? Do I deserve to be thinking those goals? Yeah. So how much do you think that's something that's not fully addressed for the younger generation that perhaps where it should be?
Massively. You know, social media has got such a bad rep. Used in the right way, it's great. However, this comparison model that everyone does, it's not going to get you anywhere. but also thinking, look, I used to work with someone, I kid you not, she chose to be a lawyer because she used to watch Ally McBeal. And for those younger listeners,
That's a flashback to the early 2000s or 90s.
Yeah, this was a TV program about a law firm and about the people that worked there.
The really neurotic people who used to work there.
Right? So she then moves into recruitment, and when she tells me this, I'm thinking, you spent 5 years training to become a lawyer and
Because of a TV program.
because of a TV program, right?
Yeah.
So it's no different now as to what it was then. There's this romanticism about certain careers, you know, from what you see in the media or, you know, on TV programs or whatever. And actually they don't do enough research. And also then you have the family pressure put into that as well, you know, family expectations from all cultures. My family, my mum was going into nursing. My dad was chemical engineer. So very science-led, right?
Sure.
So it was, you know, become a physio or, become a nurse, or I wasn't smart enough to become a doctor.
Right, okay. I don't believe that, but okay, I can see where you're going.
Right? And they didn't really know how to, this was days pre-Google, right? I mean, I look 24, but I'm, you know, a little bit older than that. But it was days pre-Google, so not really knowing about other industries or, you know, or how to advise, but also then the parent element as well of thinking, well, do I know enough about this? And if they've just been in one type of role within a certain type of industry, again, they're not going to be any different to my parents and not really having that full understanding.
Sure.
I've been really lucky enough to work within the HR world across a whole gamut of industries and really get in depth to each of those roles and also really truly understand who to connect with to ask the questions if I don't know.
Sure.
Or how to really conduct that research, where I should be looking. And you don't know what you don't know as a 19-year-old or actually as a 15-year-old, choosing your exams, then 17, what universities should you be going to. So there's a huge, vast gaping hole there for young adults that I feel us as adults, we've got a duty to be helping those kids, helping those parents, because they are the future generation, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely spot on. I mean, I went to a very good school, but even I remember, I'm 40 now, but thinking back to my sort of like 16, 17, 18 years old, they gave you some advice and they were very good at helping you get prep for university or whatever else. But it was, I mean, looking back now, I can pretty clearly see that they could give you some advice and there was a few little like compulsory chats that were given and blah, blah, blah. But it was a case of, we're expecting you to be self-motivated. And I think by virtue of that kind of attitude, it was a case of, if you don't come to us and ask the questions, we aren't going to give you the information because we don't have the structure or expectation that you are asking these questions. There's like, you know, it's like the intro to the introduction was there.
Yeah.
But apart from that, unless you came to us or raised your hand and said, I want to do this, what's the best step? What's the advice?
Yeah.
It was like, we'll push you out to sea and good luck.
It hasn't really changed.
Yeah, I can't
hasn't
believe it. Yeah.
really changed. And I mean that with all the nicety in the world. And that's not me being dismissive of career counsellors or whatever, because the pressure that they have within the schools and the universities now is absolutely huge.
I can imagine.
You know, it's like everywhere, you know, especially with all the recent events, you know, there's even more pressure. You know, having to go to online learning, not having that connection, you know, face to face, that stressed out mode of everyone, what will we do with our exams and what's going to happen now?
Sure.
Can you imagine being that one person having to get around 250 students?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, the volume of that work. If it's an hour work a week per student, that's a colossal workload.
There's not enough time. And whenever I was at London School of Economics as working as the exec coach there, students only had 15-minute slots with me.
Oh, wow.
And if they wanted to do an actual interview prep,
Sure.
there was only 6 slots given over a 3-month period. So sometimes they would have to wait, you know, literally a couple of months to see me for half an hour.
Yeah.
So, and that's LSE, right? Like, come on, that's like one of the best universities in the world.
Top of the pyramid.
Right.
Yeah.
So how different is that to a school back in Glasgow, or, you know, back of beyond, you know, in deepest, darkest Wales,
Yeah, sure.
or even out here in Dubai as well. It's no different. And hey, whenever I was at school, you know what I was told by my careers teacher? I was really good with people. I'd never make it to uni, but I might have a job in Asda.
Yeah,
right?
It's hardly the best advice there, is it?
So whenever I finished my MBA Essentials with LSE and in the top quartile, I kind of wanted to seek her out and say, remember that time you told me,
Yes.
you know?
yeah. Those conversations.
So I don't think, you know, unfortunately, because the teachers just don't have the time, you know, we actually should be, you know, going into schools ourselves, you know, actually for the schooling institutions, the university institutions, to be seeking out leaders within certain industries and asking if they can come in and do a talk.
Sure.
So it's not about necessarily paying for extra advice to come in, and I'm kind of talking myself out of my own business there, right? But actually, how can we help this younger generation? You know, so for instance, you know, you even talking about being an athlete, being a soldier, and now working within the health industry as well. You know, what is the learnings that you've had? What's the pitfalls that you've had? You know, going in and
Sure.
actually doing a talk like that would be huge.
Yeah, I mean, I said to Danny Bartlett, who was a podcast I recorded a few weeks back. I say that because at the moment, in the middle of November, none of these have gone live. Are you looking to make some changes to your quality of life? Perhaps you're looking to embrace a whole new approach to exercise, nutrition, and a healthier lifestyle, but you're just not sure how to even get started. Without a basic framework in place and some goals set, you're going to struggle, and that is the most common reason why a lot of people experience a load of stress and ultimately don't succeed in their endeavours. They just don't have a clear path to get them started and follow on with. That's why I wrote Pathway to Health, Be Your Own Life Coach. This is a program that takes you through your lifestyle approaches to nutrition, exercise and activities, shows you how to take stock of your life as it is right now, plan things out and get started on your unique personal pathway to health. You can find this course on my website, www.thebodyengineer.training, in the online store. The program comes with video guides throughout and all the downloadable planners you need to become your own life coach. Listeners to this podcast can get a 20% discount with the discount code POD20. When it came to attitudes towards education about health for the longevity of younger people, young adults and all that, and my take on that was you'll never see a significant change, and I was talking about the UK, in the education system until it's financially beneficial. Unless there's a reason, an incentive for people to invest the time in that part of education, and as I can imagine it's the same when it comes to career advice, unless there's a direct correlation between we give this time and money to doing this because we expect to see it returned. I imagine it's the same when it comes to career advice. Unless there was, and I'm guessing we're talking here about the high level education required for law, finance, engineering, unless a body in the world of law, in finance or whatever, came along and said, hey, guess what? We'll throw $3 million at career advice because we want to cream off the crop of the students to go into law. Yeah. I mean, I know that happens to a degree in some countries, it certainly does in America, where the people where, you know, there's money in, we'll invest in the future athletes because we'll get them back as players. You know, we'll throw, there's a reason why there are laws against it, but it still happens in the US about people spotting and starting to finance future athletes because they go, we'll help you through university so you've got money to eat, because then we're going to draw you into our team and make 40 million a season off you. Yeah. You know, unless that happens, I don't think career advice is going to get the impetus it deserves. It's
starting to change. Even on the news this morning, Sky News this morning reported that a third of the jobs in the UK, there's a talent drought for.
Good. Fantastic.
Right?
The way it should be.
So I actually started bleating on about this last year.
Right.
Saying how there was going to be a talent drought across the globe because of what's happened, you know, job losses. Parents can no longer afford to send to X university or maybe even university at all.
Right.
So therefore the apprenticeship scheme really needs to be embodied.
Sure.
And also, you know, companies need to be going in and actually supporting these educations, even doing scholarships more, actually investing that money to get it back.
Sure.
It's not about investing it for their own purpose. It will come to you.
Sure, yeah.
Kind of like what you and I do, right?
Yeah.
It will come to us in other ways. So if companies can start doing that, and I've got a big thing about it here in the UAE, the internship programs here is an absolute farce. I'm
Right.
sorry, but it is.
Uh-huh.
There's someone that I work with who was going for an interview with a global recruitment leader. Let's just leave it there
Sure.
before I get sued. And so I helped her prep her for the interview. She's been studying for 5 years. She's just about to graduate in business and entrepreneurship.
Right.
She speaks 4 languages. She's here completely bootstrapped on her own. She doesn't have the parents to back her financially.
Sure.
Guess how much they offered her a week for an internship? And the internship, by the way, was a 6-month
Right.
program, which isn't an internship. An internship is 6 to 8 weeks by definition.
Yeah, because it's meant to be a short intro. Yeah.
200 dirhams, 40 quid a week.
So it's on that model of you should be grateful to be even considered for the internship. So
Yeah.
don't think we're going to pay you.
Yeah, and what's happening within the UAE, and it's something that I'm now on a mission to try and change, is the internship culture. Because what is happening is students are all speaking amongst each other, speaking with their younger siblings who are at school and saying, I can't get a job. I just keep on getting offered these internship programs,
Which you can't live on.
which are for anything between 6 months to a year. And that's called a short-term contract in recruitment and HR terms.
That's someone who's now part of your business.
Yeah, and paying them anything as little as 200 dirhams, 40 quid, or as much as £500 a month. Now, 2,500 dirhams a month. Now, I get that there's no rainbow at the end. There's no golden pot at the end of the rainbow, right?
Sure.
And there's lots of students out there doing jobs that they didn't think that they would be doing just to make ends meet.
Yeah.
But they've had to make ends meet. However, they work in a country where that isn't allowed. Or maybe it's not being called out yet. I don't know. But it needs to change here, because what it's going to do is affect those students either going to uni or not going to uni.
Sure.
Because why get themselves into so much debt?
Yeah.
And then to be faced with, we're going to give you 40 quid,
Yeah.
200 dirhams
What's the
a
incentive
week.
there?
Like, come
But
on.
you can't live on that.
You can't live on that. You tell me who can live on that.
You couldn't do in a lot of other countries, but especially here, because whilst this part of the world is fantastic for opportunity, potentially, the cost of living is always a factor when you try and do anything, because it's not a cheap place to live.
You couldn't even do it in the UK.
No,
I think
you
in
couldn't,
the UK, now, I haven't looked into it for a long time, but I think it's something like 75 quid a week that you get on social.
Right. And that's below the standard of living. That's
Correct.
just the barest government assistance. I mean,
Yeah.
you think about what anyone doing that would realistically have to be living at home, have to be living with a family member or parents, because otherwise you couldn't afford to feed yourself and pay rent and go and do the internship. I mean, an internship is essentially you're being asked to apprentice, basically audition for that role, that company.
Yeah.
But by the way, we don't value enough to pay you.
Yeah.
I mean, and going back to Danny's podcast, I asked him, spoiler alert, by the way, because I don't yet know the order these are going to be put online. I asked him, one of the very last things I asked him was, what would you say to, or what would you do if you could wave a hand right now and implement change in the fitness and health industries? And he said the one thing he would like to see a change of is to recruiters, business owners, gym owners, is value your staff. Value the people who prepare to come and work for you. Treat them better. Pay them what they're worth. And if you think your new intake are only worth a basic level of coming in, it's on you then to bring them along with skills so that they are worth more. Because you can't take people in and just grind them down and then replace them with the next lot in 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't, it doesn't make anyone enthusiastic to come and work for you or in the industry. But also, what standard are you having for the public?
Yeah.
Where your employees or the people that are going to work for you go, hey, we don't value you.
Yeah.
We don't value our customers because look what we're prepared to treat you like, and you're the face of the workforce.
Exactly.
And I'm sure that goes through into education, because I went from education to the military, and then on to start working for myself. So I didn't go into that environment, but I did leave a fairly formal institution, being the military, to go into civilian life, and it's talked about as a culture shock, but it is for a variety of reasons, far more than I think that most people actually realise. Because when you're in that kind of environment, you always know the environment won't let you fail completely because you're a cog, you're in the machine.
Yeah.
When you step outside of that, you are quite literally a balloon lost in the wind. You know, and if I know so many people who fall foul of employment situations or, like you said, the system, because a lot of things out there aren't geared to help you succeed. It's how much can I draw out of you?
Yeah.
You're a resource, and when you run dry, good luck, goodbye.
And look, I think it's the same for companies, right? Whenever they take on a graduate,
Sure.
they have these high expectations. Oh, they went to such and such university. These are their grades, etc. It's still a human being that they're employing. But because the companies need to get a return on their investment quickly of the students, you know, coming in, or any employee coming in, you know, you've got 3 months to prove your worth.
Sure.
And if they're not getting that, then they're going to quickly either have to change their business model, which will cost more money, or they will reduce the number of graduates that they take on board because of everything that's else has happened around the world. Then every business is having to look at their business model. So I think actually what we should be doing as coaches, as mentors, as leaders, should be spending time and giving back.
Yeah.
Let's go into the schools and universities. Let's offer our services. You don't know how it's going to work. That's fine. Just go in and start the conversation.
Sure.
So that something can be created.
Yeah. No, I very much agree with you on that one. Given recent events then, and we refer to 2019 to current times for obvious reason, things have started to be wound back across the world. Depending on where people are living, it differs in what context. But have you seen people very slowly and tentatively look at their futures now and considering their next steps? Like, hesitant to go into it, or a little bit maybe fatigued because they've been told just wait, step away, you can't do anything? Or is it the opposite? People have been frustrated and now rushing back?
It's been the opposite, actually.
Good.
There's been a real snap.
Yeah, it's like, yes, we can now do this.
Yes, we can now do this. Or guess what? I've had enough and
Yeah.
I'm completely changing.
Yeah, I want to be proactive and dive in.
And I think because they feel that so much time has been snatched away from them,
Sure.
that it's a gung-ho kind of approach.
Right.
Which I think's awesome, but at the same time, you do need to be strategic in your move. So I'm not saying don't do it, but just take a week.
Sure.
That's all I'm asking, is a week to really strategize over something and take that step back before you just make that snap decision.
Dive in straight away.
Dive in.
Yeah. There's certainly, again, we talked about, I used the word holistic right at the start of this recording. And I know you and I have talked previous to today about someone you're working with who's had to come back to you like, please help me, headspace, because they don't see their future in holistically a sense of what it is, because they're focused on career, as in like the job or the educational establishment or the course, and they don't take into account the broader aspect of, especially if it's a student moving up to university level education, the case of, right, I'm going to go and do this, and they don't see the bigger picture of money management. Where am I living? How am I managing my social time? How am I putting together a diary? Do you think that's something that hits a lot of people in the face as a shock? Because they've been living at home, they've been going through like that intermediate educational stage to university, and if they're not still staying at home, I know friends who went to that level who managed themselves very, very well. Yeah. And I know people who did that and got absolutely hit in the head with a brick going, what am I doing? Oh, no, I no longer. I've got to manage my own laundry and I've got to feed myself and I can't live in the student union bar 7 days a week because they didn't know how to manage their time. I imagine that's still the case.
100%, but I mean, it would surprise you the amount of adults that are like that as well.
Oh, yeah, no, I see that in my job. People are going, oh shit, you mean I've actually got to look at what I eat as well as exercise and sleep, and I can't drink like 3 days of the weekend. No, you can't roll through the bar after work on a Friday all the way through to Monday morning.
Can I just be like, I mean, I was really honest whenever I was a client of yours.
Yeah,
I did tell you,
I've
had a drink, I did this, I'm really sorry.
But the thing is, I always said to you that real world, we're adults. So if you
Yeah.
tell me you're going to have a drink on the weekend, fine. If you tell me you were drinking 7 days a week, that's a problem.
Yeah.
But you were
That
always,
would be a problem anyway, right?
but I mean, in that aspect, again, it was real world scenarios. It was a case of, right, I'm not going to give up alcohol. Okay, fine, you don't need to. But let's find a situation that works.
Yeah.
Whether it's a casual weekend or I've got a big dinner coming up or a corporate event, I'm going to have a drink, I'm going to eat differently. Okay, cool. No guilt associated, but big picture, how this works with what we're doing.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I actually met with a new client yesterday.
I thought you were going to say new trainer. I was going to scowl at you across the desk.
Never. Are you joking? You're the guy that made me lose 16 centimetres off my waist within like a nanosecond. So I met with this new client yesterday, and he's been given feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Really senior, actually, within the hotel trade. And he'd been given feedback about gravitas.
Right, okay.
He's one of the top performing hoteliers, right?
Yeah.
Who gives a damn about, how he walks into a room and how he holds the room,
sure.
right? The bottom line, that's what the owners are interested in, is actually how successful he is making this hotel.
Sure.
And, and I said, but at the same time, you have to learn how to play the game.
Yeah, there is that.
You have to learn how to play the game, but let's do it in a way that doesn't change you.
Sure.
So just like what you're saying, adapting to what you want to do, the achievements that you want to get. There's still some inherent part in all of us that says that little child going, no, I don't want to do it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'm not going to do this.
That, sort of deliberate disobedience. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not doing that just because you said do it.
Exactly. And it's just because someone else's opinion has influenced this decision about him, or someone else's opinion has influenced how you feel about yourself physically, aesthetically, all of that. And actually it's finding out what you're actually comfortable with and what you're uncomfortable with, and finding the middle point and
Sure.
thinking, okay, is that the point that I want to change here or not? So it's really interesting how the two of them blended to, together there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I can see that. It's like you say, the idea of telling someone who's leading in their field. I think you should be more focused on how you enter a room and how you hold yourself. Yeah, but this is not someone going on to X Factor, looking for someone to go, look at me from the second you see me.
Yeah.
This is someone who's already got to the point of, no, you want my input because of what I've already achieved.
Yeah. And I get that, gravitas, it's such a subjective viewpoint, right, of how someone will enter, how they hold themselves, how they present themselves, the gravitas that they have when they enter a room.
Mm-hmm.
Some people either have it or some people don't, or some people need to work on it.
Sure.
But all that is to make the audience feel more happier.
Yes. Yeah.
Make them feel more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually got nothing to do with the way that they actually are or how results driven they are.
Sure.
It's actually about making your audience feel happier.
Yeah.
And feeling that, that they're in good hands. I suppose it's like you when you meet a new client for the first time.
Right.
You're an extremely tall chap. You got a great physique. No one is going to come in and really listen to you if you were X stone overweight and you hadn't brushed your teeth in 2 weeks, and
Image.
But whereas as soon as they meet you, your gravitas is that, one, you're a really nice guy. MD can tell you, I could tell you anything about my medical history, and I wasn't like, oh, woe me. I was just like, this is really very factual, and you responded to me really factually.
Sure.
And I was like, okay, this guy's like sensible. Like, yeah, he's not going to push me to the extremities that I'm going to be thrown up in the corner. And that's your gravitas, your presence. You're solid. I definitely wouldn't like to take a punch off you.
Anyone listening, that's not how I treat my clients. All right, it's not always the threat of violence that inspires a workout. I promise.
No, it was bringing in that frisbee. You remember the frisbee with the wheels underneath it? Yeah. You made me do those really awful exercises. However, they really worked.
Yeah. No, that would, yes, the core thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, like you say, it's the gravitas thing does in a part relate to your self-esteem is the wrong term. That
Self-belief.
self-belief and sort of professional expression.
Yeah, and how can you have that as a young adult, right?
Sure, when you don't have
when
that
you
yet.
don't have that yet, and that's something that I go in and work with kids on within schools,
Mm-hmm.
within workshops. And for me, it's about natural curiosity.
Sure.
It's get curious, ask the questions. Don't be scared to ask the questions. If in the meeting isn't the right time, take a note of it.
Sure.
And then go and ask them afterwards and learn so that you can actually build upon that gravitas there. So, it's something that you can build upon over time.
Mm-hmm. So that fits nicely into something that I was considering as a question to ask you yesterday, which is, what is it you think maybe graduates and certainly younger students don't even know that they don't know? If that makes sense, because we've just literally touched on there the idea of don't be afraid to ask the question. But I know from personal experience, because I've done it, and I know other people that have done it to me and to other professionals, that people think they know something, or they have an attitude that can be veering towards arrogance, where they don't know enough about themselves to recognize. It's definitely true in the fitness industry, especially via Instagram. The idea of knowing what you know and being aware of your skill set and your intelligence, but being so aware of what you're not informed on. Mm-hmm. You're not aware of yet, both in terms of your personality and your skill set. Don't bullshit what you don't know. Yeah. I'm a big one for, I will happily hold my hand up and go, if you come to me as a client and gone, blah, 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 I've got this, I had this medical issue, I will put my hand up really quickly and go, great, here's my skill set across the board.
Yeah.
You've touched on something there that I do not know enough about to confidently advise you. So I'm going to bring in this person who does and talk to you with them as well, or even push you across to them totally.
Yeah.
Go and speak to this medical professional about your herniated disc that you had to have surgery on, because I know full well my skill set goes so far. Yeah. I want their input about you to then go, right, we can work on this to this degree, or I'm not even going to begin to have you in the gym. Go and see this specialist. Do what they tell you for X amount of time, and we'll build that together to get you your results. I'm very aware, it's from experience and my own personal self-awareness of, I've never thought I'm an expert. My mind is, I'm a lifelong student. I've been that way since I was a kid. I want to learn as much as possible, but I'm always aware the spectrum of my knowledge goes from A to B. Or that's a wrong term for a spectrum, but here to here. And there's going to be everything to the sides of that I don't know.
Which is awesome. And it would make me trust you even more by admitting that you don't know.
Sure.
The ex-CEO of Lloyds of London, this is a guy that consulted with the British government.
Yeah,
so with governments up there worldwide, right? Industry leaders. And he stood up one day at a town hall and said, you know what? I'd rather look stupid for 30 seconds and asking a question about something that I was unsure of, instead of kidding on that I knew about it and looking silly for the next 30 years and it being all over the press.
Sure.
And he was absolutely right. And I, will say that as well. Look, I don't know enough about that, or let me speak. There's certain psychologists or psychotherapists that I work with. Listen, let me touch base with them. Sure. Let's find this out. And actually, they might be the one that you might need to speak to rather than me. And, people appreciate that, rather than the BS answer of, you knowing everything. Nobody knows everything.
No, absolutely not.
And I suppose with students, what they don't know, what they don't know yet. I've seen this happening over the past 10 years. And especially whenever I was helping to run the graduate scheme at Lloyds, students would come in, they would present, and just because it was all fancy and ta-da, but there was no content behind it. Yeah. And that's what students have been getting told for the past 10 plus years. Make it look fancy, bamboozle them with that. But the lack of content was really disappointing. Whereas somebody could have come in and presented on a flip chart instead and said, right, okay, and actually given us the facts and figures.
Sure.
and the perspective that we were looking for rather than some fancy PowerPoint.
Mm-hmm.
That person with the flip chart would
That's the person you want.
That's the person that you
Sure.
want. So I think for students, I suppose just to remind themselves of, it's okay not to know, and it's okay not to blag it.
Sure.
You know, fake it till you make it. It's been going around forever
Yeah,
now.
yeah. There's only a certain kind of person that appeals to.
Yeah, and people are smart, right? They can see right through that.
Yeah.
And it immediately turns you off. And if you're trying to fake something or lie about something, you'll eventually, get caught out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, that's going to be way worse. So I would say what they don't know yet is about natural curiosity. They don't actually realise how awesome that is and how powerful it is.
Sure.
Now, whenever you ask someone to talk about themselves, especially within a corporate setting, they love it,
Yeah.
right? They love talking about themselves and their career, and that's
Yeah.
awesome. They're proud of it, and so they should be. But there's nothing better than, as a student, whenever they first go and meet someone that they don't know, is not to sit there like a quiet mouse, but to actually say, hey, I'd love to hear more about your career and how you got here.
Yeah.
It's a really simple question. Just ask that and get the connection going.
Sure. I mean, and that's why you were on the list of people I wanted to speak to for this podcast straight away. As soon as I decided, no, I'm going to do this and pull the trigger on it, is I'm not afraid to ask anybody about anything. And like you said with the guy in banking, if I ask a question and I look a dick until I make my point clear, I don't care.
Yeah.
Because I would sooner ask the question and learn something from a response than sit here quietly and go, I still don't know what I don't know. Or I don't know what you could possibly help me with, because I don't have the guts to ask, or I'm not prepared to look beyond my own focus to go, that's someone else over there. I'd sooner come across and go, hi, hey, guess what? I don't know what about that. Can you tell me? Or let's talk about, like, I'm talking to you to help to broaden my mind about how people think about moving into another career or advancing towards a goal. I'm not a student. I'm not 17, 18 years old. I'm 40. That part of my life is sadly long past.
I don't know. Never say never, right?
Well, yeah, exactly.
You might end up moving into something else, like, I don't know, in your 60s.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I've talked about this with someone else just recently. It frustrates me and saddens me to a large part, especially in the modern age where everyone's like, thinks intellect and life experiences should be like Amazon and Instagram. It's an instant, haha, cool. If I look like I'm doing something, therefore it translates. Everyone thinks like all good and shiny, blah, blah, blah. But it frustrates me that people think education stops when you leave school gates.
No, it's just starting.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, my career now that's all I'm focused on, and my education, the idea of learning is now past. I didn't like it necessarily, or I don't feel like I need to do it anymore. Blech. If you think about your life going ahead, you're always going to need to be learning to some degree, because your experiences don't stop when you leave formal education. You need to learn how to drive this vehicle, or how to be a parent, or how to pay the mortgage.
Yeah.
They're all things we learn, but we don't quote unquote learn. We just
Or master Excel.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we learn over time. But I mean, if you're listening to someone's podcast and it rings a bell for going, hey, I'm really interested in Scottish history or this language or this person's approach to baking, and then you go and read another book on it, or you watch this series on Netflix. Enjoy learning for learning's sake, because you can draw from it. You know, and I'm not to ring my own bell, that's not the point of saying this, but I went through the Ironman coaching program for the sole reason I might learn something about my own training.
Yeah.
I don't market myself as a qualified Ironman coach, and I am.
Yeah.
But I wanted to learn it for me. I would sit and study for months so that I knew at the end of it, I could go, oh, cool, okay, I understand how to better program my own training in the pool and how to better emphasize this part of peaking on a bike. Just because I could take away from that and go, cool, okay, that's now got into my head and I've got that bit more understanding. I'll never touch it again, apart from my own training. I don't take on clients for triathlons because it's so much of an investment for my time. I could do, but I wanted to learn for my own sake. I mean, I studied photography when I was at school. I even had access to the school's darkroom, going back pre-digital, because the school was like, okay, this is not just a flash in the pan idea for you. So, okay, use the chemicals, use the machines, free of charge. just don't trash the place, knock yourself out, because they wanted to let me further my interest.
Yeah.
Just because I had an interest in doing it. You know, my dad gave me one of his old 35mm cameras or whatever it was for the film.
Yeah.
Went, go nuts.
Yeah.
You know, and just things like that. So, yeah, I think people should really grasp the idea of learning can be really satisfying just because it's something you can learn.
And I think, you know, this is something about, we're coming up to personal statement time.
Right, okay. In the education.
In
sort of
education
like, so,
for university applications. The Cambridge and Oxford ones have already been done, but for, you know, I'll put inverted comma here, mainstream universities, the deadline's at the end of Jan, like 23rd of Jan or something. And I've been saying to a lot of my students, what's your why?
Yeah.
Why do you want to do this?
Ally McBeal.
Yeah, because I've
I
been
saw
watching Ally
Suits.
McBeal.
I watched Suits on Netflix.
Yeah, or I watched ER, you know. So, or I think the newest one is New Amsterdam.
I've heard of that. I haven't watched it yet.
It's awesome. But, you know, by doing that, by actually getting naturally curious, you know, with themselves and doing that research, because, you know, they're going to be spending the next 4, maybe 5 or plus years studying it.
Sure.
And, you know, you want to do something that you like and you enjoy. And that's no different whenever you're an adult. You know, if you choose to study something,
Sure.
you know, because of your own interest, like you said, you know, you're naturally interested in it yourself. That's no different. So please don't pick a university course just because the sake of, you know, because you're going to get bored.
Oh, God, yeah.
And you're going to waste your time.
Yeah.
And if that was, you don't realise that whenever you're a student, but time is the most precious commodity.
Oh, absolutely.
And, you know, it's not about yes, of course, everything's got to do with money as well. But people will always say, first of all, if they did a course, the first word out their mouth will be, that was a complete waste of time. Mm-hmm. And then it was also a complete waste of money.
We'd all like to be a bit healthier, but sometimes it's just hard getting the right ingredients in or knowing what meals to make in the time frame that you've got. So I put together 4 unique books available on my website right now that can help you make all those decisions, have the best nutritional start to your day, and start to make some real impact in improving your quality of life. Okay, so if you go to my website, www.thebodyengineer.training, and go to the online store, there are 4 books there for you right now. There is the 52 high protein recipes, quick and easy 5 ingredient recipes. That's a fantastic good starter book if you're trying to improve your meals. Your go-to vegan recipe book and the keto guide, okay? All available for $14.99. Listeners to this podcast get a discount if you use the code POD20.
So, you know, choose what you really want to do, what really interests you. And, you know, if you can get a career from that, great. You know, if you're still struggling with that, then, you know, yeah, we need to do a little bit more investigation there. And that's whenever you're strategic and you pick, you know, a course that is, I'll say generic or vanilla, whatever. You know, if it was a business course, or if it, you know, you really wanted to go into the health industry, but you weren't sure specifically, you know, you could do something, you know, with nutrition or sports science or, you know, something. But whenever you're an adult, that's how you choose the things you want to study.
Sure.
It should be no different as a young adult.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I suppose this is me trying to reshape what you just said to a younger audience, perhaps. If you think about dating someone when you're 16, 17, 18, whatever, you're not going to sort of like hang around with them just because they might look like the person you want to date. You're going to talk to them, you're going to talk to your friends, you're going to talk to their friends and go, hey, this seems like a cool person. I want to get to know them, and hopefully that may become boyfriend, girlfriend, and you go from there. You should approach your future with the same degree of interest. If something really doesn't float your boat and hold your attention, are you only doing it because you think maybe someone says you should? I mean, that's the reason why I went to the military when I did rather than go via university, because I had friends, and I won't name them, but I know people personally, and I've met since, that went to university as a path, but also specific universities because mum or dad did so, or the family went so and so, or they knew the theatre they wanted to go into professionally, but they thought, I have to go to this university, not to do those courses at the university that suits me, has the right ethos, that dove in and go, I've got to go here because my dad went there, and if I don't, he'll look badly at me, or I can't get the same job, I don't think. And they were all universally miserable.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I have to, this is the only path for me, despite the fact that I loathe it.
Can you imagine being the parent and watching their child go through that?
Yeah.
That
And not
must
being
be-
aware of it.
Yeah.
Or even not caring. I mean, let's face it, there'll be some people in that boat who go, no, they will do this because I did it.
Yeah, and I think they're more of the minority than the majority.
Hopefully. I
And
really do hope.
yeah, I do. From my experience of working with young adults, I would say that is absolutely the case.
Sure.
A lot of the parents will now say, their happiness is the most important thing. We want them
Sure.
to be happy.
Yeah.
But we want them to have a good career and a good job after it.
Mm-hmm.
So during the summer, I had some interns, which was the best experience of my life. And it was a 6-week program, just to be clear. And it was amazing. And, they'd had lots of assumptions about, billionaires and millionaires, and they went to the best uni and they did this and they did that. So one of my biggest, idols is Sarah Blakely, who created Spanx.
Sure.
She's just sold a portion of her company, and in selling that off, because she's been bootstrapped for the past 20 years. And for younger students who don't know the expression bootstrap, it means she's completely self-funded. So that in itself is awesome. She started the company off with $5,000. And she wanted some
Wasn't she at the time
undergarments.
also selling typewriters?
She was selling fax machines
That was
door
it.
to
Sorry,
door.
yes, I do know who she is. See?
Right? Guess what uni she went to?
Can't remember.
She went to Florida Community College.
Right, okay.
Right? She studied communications. So the communications part was awesome because actually she's really good at
Yeah.
communicating, right? She was Forbes' first billionaire woman. And in selling a portion of her company off, do you know what she did with the money? She actually bought all of her staff a first-class global worldwide ticket to anywhere in the world that they wanted to go.
Wow.
And in addition, she gave them and their partner $10,000 to spend.
Right. So they can just basically go, leave your life for a period and just go and experience the world.
Yeah. Because without her employees, she wouldn't have been able to do what she's done. The whole point is that she didn't go to a Harvard, she didn't go to a Yale,
Yeah.
she didn't go Cambridge, Oxford, keep MIT, keep on naming them all,
Yeah.
right? She went to a pretty average university, and yeah, she did communication, something that she knew that she was good at, and that she would be able to get a role in a business setting in some kind of format.
Right.
Now that business setting, as it turned out for her, was selling fax machines door
Sure.
to door,
But it also paid the bills.
but it paid the bills.
Yeah.
So sometimes you've got to do a hustle to get to where you really want to go.
Sure.
And that is something that I think all students, parents, siblings, everyone really need to embrace, that if you don't know what you want to do, think about what you love.
Yeah. What you enjoy.
And then, create a role, a career,
Sure.
a job, something, from that.
That's very, very concisely put. I mean, it's also worth noting, and I'm saying this as someone who's not yet a parent, but hopes to be at some point in the future, to people out there listening who are that bit younger, don't feel also that once those wheels start turning in one path or one course or one direction, that you can't pull the brakes, you can't change direction.
Yeah.
You can't go, hey, you know what, this isn't for me, or maybe I'll come back to this in the future, but right now I'm sort of lost the focus, or I've realized this is not where I want to be. I mean, I joined the military as an aeronautical engineer, and that was really what I wanted to do, because I was fascinated with engineering from a very early age. High-speed cars, anything that flew was just really where my brain was. And I got into that, and I realized, you know what? I should have gone into R&D rather than actually doing this, because this is not where my heart's at. I don't like it. I'm not in love with it, and I certainly can't see a future in it. So I basically re-rolled in the military, because I decided I'm going to have more fun abseiling out of helicopters and fixing them. And because I was like, at the time, you know what, early 20s as I was then, after doing the educational part of everything, I thought, if this lasts me a few years, I can have a life after this, but I cannot do this for my future. It's not for me.
And how much of a mind, fill in the blank,
Yeah.
is that?
Oh,
if
colossal.
you had to spend the rest of your
Colossal.
life doing that,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And that's actually a lot of the time where I spend my time exec coaching corporates,
Sure.
right? Is actually for them to figure out another direction from what they've been doing for the past 20 plus years, or to be able to cope with the narcissistic boss that they've got in a job that they absolutely hate. I've definitely experienced that.
Yeah, and me.
Yeah.
So I work for myself. My boss is an arsehole. I can only look in the mirror.
And it's really fascinating that I've got two sides of the coin. You know, I deal with these guys and women in really senior roles, and they're really unhappy, but they make a huge amount of money. But this just goes back to the full circular conversation at the beginning. It's not going to make you happy.
No.
You're either going to wake up in the morning and think, yeah, I've got X amount of millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank, but am I happy? No, I'm not.
Sure.
So do something that makes you happy.
Yeah.
You know, life is goddamn short.
Yeah.
So, and that's why me taking it to the younger adults and really helping them, coach them with their career pathway. Now, I'm not saying that's foolproof. I'm not going to say that, you know, because we've done that work at the beginning, then it's absolutely 100%, you know, they're not going to get to mid-30s and think, I want to change direction.
Sure.
But they should have had a better ride along the way than what they would have if, like, oh, I've had to go and do this course because of X, and I need to go and do this job, and that, you know, that pressure. So it's amazing actually how the two sets of individuals really speak to one another, but we haven't made the connection.
No. Yeah, I mean, I would say again to a younger audience out there, FJ and I are probably I've been fortunate to be a lot more worldly traveled and aware than most. That's a fair statement to make. Do not think at a young age you need to fixate on money at that point in your life, or the fact that you're going to get it inside of 18 months in a workplace, because unless you strike oil in your back garden, it ain't going to happen. You know, some years ago now, it was 2021, so probably 4 or 5 years ago, I was working in what I will call the VVIP world of personal training, where I was, at one point, I had 2 different homes and I had 2 kitchens on the go at once. And what I mean by that is I could stock a kitchen on a Monday and I would be in a different part of the world stocking another kitchen by a Wednesday and back in the first kitchen by Friday, because I was on a private plane going X, Y, and Z everywhere all the time. And one of my clients at the time spent, and I'm not joking, an average of £10 million a year on cars.
Wow.
That was either his personal collection or the vehicles that he bought to, in that world. You buy this one, you enjoy it for a few years, and you pass it on in the market, you put it up for sale, and use the money from that to buy the next one, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
This was someone who had inherited a lot of money, had made a lot of money. Guess what? It didn't necessarily make him happy. It provided a lot of opportunity, and he could live a life that most people don't. However, he hired me because he couldn't grasp exercise. He couldn't look after his own best interest when it came to food and drink, because
He made bad choices.
Exactly. He was like, oh no, I've always lived like this since uni. And now I'm overweight and I've got health concerns and blah, 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 blah. And guess what? Type 2 diabetes is around the corner. So I need to speak to someone else because, yeah, I've accrued all the money, but I need to speak to another professional. I need to cast my net wider. I haven't found all the answers, all the solutions. And this was a guy who was now in his late 50s, who he got all the gold. He had the Scrooge McDuck money bin where he could dive into if he wanted every morning and go, hey, look how much I own. But he hadn't found all the answers.
But it's funny, isn't it, how these cars are actually toys, and he hasn't made the connection that just buying these is trying to fulfill a void in his life that he's actually really unhappy with. And most people are like, oh my God, he's having so much fun doing it. No, he's not. He was buying those cars to fill that void. and try and make himself feel better for a short period of time.
Sure. I mean, it's badges of accomplishment. And go, hey, I own this boat, this cars, I can do X, Y, and Z. And there are people around the world that, like you said, have that in terms of their homes or their career, sort of like checkpoints. But just because you're setting out into the world at a young age, don't set yourself, I would suggest, superficial benchmarks as tokens of what you've succeeded in doing.
Yeah.
Because I've met people that have got the houses and the cars and they spend the money on the 14 credit cards and the rest of it. It doesn't mean they're all there. They may have got more to show for what they've done, but they still want coaches. They still want professional advice. They still have maybe members of the board of their businesses that help them with the structure, because they need to have those other people to bounce things off of. They need to have the intellectual support, the awareness, the people to have arguments with, and just go to and go, hey, guess what? I don't know what the hell I'm doing with this.
Yeah.
But they help people. I remember reading some years ago, I think may have even been on LinkedIn, a quote of from Richard Branson, who'd said, look, a lot of people get to somewhere in their career where the company they work for sees that they've plateaued, and then they leave them there for years, or they fire them and replace them. And he said that my attitude has always been, they may have got to this point in their journey, so let's make them grow by giving them a lateral move. To go, guess what? You've gone so far in this field, but rather than leave you there to just languish for the next however many years, how about we give you another role, somewhere where you can direct your talents a little differently, and maybe we can still get more out of you for your sake. I mean, obviously, that's not a completely selfless motive, because that makes you potentially more valuable to him, which makes him more money. But he was able to recognize, and I'm sure it's something he must have had in his head right from the start of his own business empire, people don't have a linear path in their intellect.
No, and also, just because someone hasn't done a job doesn't mean that they don't have the propensity to work at that level.
Sure.
They've just never been given the opportunity to do so. And I seen Karen Brady speak a number of years ago, chairman of Birmingham FC, and first woman chairman in football, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was, 15, 16 years plus ago, maybe even it was 20 years ago, I'm not sure. But I heard her speak. I was really lucky enough that at the company that I worked for actually had her come and speak as a guest speaker at one of our events. And what she did was, she had this exact same thought as Richard Branson. Just because you haven't, worked, or you've hit that plateau or whatever, doesn't mean to say you're not going to add some value elsewhere in the company.
Sure.
So what she did once a quarter was got everyone to swap jobs.
Right. Okay. I mean, I can see the idea there.
She even herself was on the ticket machine, taking everyone's tickets and coming into the football match.
Sure.
Now, probably a lot of these guys didn't have a clue who she was,
Yeah.
right? Some posh bird sitting behind, the ticket machine. Please may I have your ticket?
Yeah.
Instead of, oh, darling, and then those women and men who did those jobs went and actually sat in her office. Everyone got a different perspective of how this company, this club actually operated.
Sure.
So therefore, ideas were generated, new processes, or what are you doing it like that for? Like, why don't you do it like that? That's like way easier, because then that would actually then impact our job. And
or how about we do this?
Yeah. And the success that she had was mainly attributed to that, and actually being open to that. So I would encourage, even in the home, right? Hate to say it, but I mean, my husband definitely hasn't mastered, still after 13 years, the difference between dark colours, light colours and white, and he really tries every time, and then he always says to me that he's still in training and all of the rest of it.
Sure.
However, whenever I go away for a certain period of time, guess what? The washing gets done. He just has to figure it out, or he'll say when I come back, why don't we do this like this instead? It's exactly the same. So change it up at home.
Yeah. I mean, ideas are always good, even if you can listen to someone's ideas and then discount them because maybe it doesn't work for you. It doesn't mean you should shun the idea of new ideas. I wish I honestly had the recall to remember what it was I read it on, but something years ago. It was to do with it might have something engineering. I swear it was. I don't know whether it was computer based or manufacturing. But the CEO of his business, who's also the owner, said that in order to further innovation amongst his engineers, once a year, and it was varied throughout the year, so you didn't just get hit with this all at once. Everyone was working within the department, everyone was running their own department, but once a year, compulsory, he gave everyone leeway to work on their own avenue of interest, not necessarily within their department. It could have been anywhere else within the company. He'd go, right, you can, for a few weeks, I want you to put your mind, either in your spare time or in the office, to something within your own personal project and viewpoint, because you are going to present it to me at the end of it. He's like, you may be, let's think about, I mean, I'm a big motorsport fan and I've worked with racing drivers. So let's imagine we're talking about a Formula One team, and you've got the guys who work on the engine, the aerodynamics, the press, and the driver media relations, all the different kind of aspects, and personal trainer, the rest of it. He would say, for example, okay, you work on the engine, but guess what? Next month, work on a part of our business that you have a real passion for and an idea for. Because if we can take something from it, we will implement it. So if you're the engine guy, you're the chief of power, but you've got a really good idea about how we could potentially address our social media. Come to me in a week and present this to me, because if it's something that we haven't yet thought of, we're going to go with it.
Yeah,
because
awesome.
Everyone working for this company then was like, guess what? I can have a voice and an idea. If it's been niggling back in my head of, I think maybe we could do this a bit differently, but it's not my field, so I've just sat on this idea.
Yeah.
He was prepared to go, bring it up.
Yeah.
You're valuable to me. Just because you don't have that job doesn't mean you don't know what you're talking about.
I did the same, actually, funny you say that, with a boutique recruitment company in London a number of years ago. And I did it as a Dragon's Den,
Right, okay.
where they had to present. We'd had a whole couple of days workshop before that, but it was giving them a voice.
Yeah.
And the CEO actually implemented a number of the ideas. Actually, who knows, that person might have been thinking of leaving before that, and then they've stayed that little bit
Because
longer.
you've shown that awareness.
But the CEO is he's awesome. He's really forward thinking in the way that he thinks. And it was great to see this camaraderie between everyone, and then everyone looking at each other going, oh wow, that's a really smart idea. I didn't see you like that before,
Sure.
Even though they knew that they were smart, they also were like, oh, I didn't think you were that visionary,
Yeah.
So it's a cool concept.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Right, yeah, I mean, going on from that then, because we've been going for an hour and 5 minutes, and we know we've got to potentially wrap up in the near future. Anybody listen to this then? So as a student or a graduate or anybody who's thinking about what could I do? What could I do next? What's this step to go to? If they're sat at home listening to this and they've got a pencil and a bit of paper handy, what 2, 3, let's go a little bit Gary Lee for a minute. What few things could anybody begin to strategize going forward? What few things could you advise someone just think about? Not in terms of highly specific things, but just generically, if someone sat twiddling their thumbs thinking, I've got an idea in my head, what few steps of advice could you give them to start laying the structure down?
First of all, what time do they want to have this done within?
Okay, so time frame.
Structure. Yeah. Say is it okay within the next 18 months, within the next 3 to 5 years? What is it? And then start planning back. Okay, the end goal is X, but what do you need to do to actually get there?
Right.
And then start that strategy, literally working backwards. Do you have to do a course, or do you actually have to read more, or do you need to listen to more podcasts, or do you maybe need to even interview people? And then that also will then add into your time. How long is that actually going to take? And then how do you actually want to implement it, and what needs to change to make that implementation happen?
Sure.
There's been a lot of sacrifices that I and probably you've had to make. I now have people not inviting us to certain things because, well, actually all things, because they don't get why I choose my business over them. I choose my clients over them because I'm building my business. That's my baby.
Because X amount of hours per day has to be put in because your end result is X and you have to put the steps in to make it.
So therefore, what's my implementation? My implementation is that there has to be sacrifices to be made.
Right, okay.
And even sacrifices of even the money that I bring in. I might, do I miss going into Jimmy Choo and buying frivolously, 2-3 pairs of shoes at a time? Yes. But at the same time, I actually get more joy out of now buying, giveaways for my workshops or cool hoodies or seeing someone wearing my hoodie, that I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
The shoes will make me feel good for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm first trying them on, they're seeing them go in the box and then I carry the bag home and all of that, but actually that's where, so my sacrifice is where I'm choosing to spend my money, my time, and also what's the enjoyment level? I have to ask myself, okay, am I going to really enjoy that, or actually am I going to enjoy doing that research more because it's going to make my life easier over the course of the next month? Right. So that's what I mean by strategizing. Do it in 3 columns. What's your end goal? What's your timeline? And what do you need to sacrifice? That would be my advice.
Because that last one especially is for those people who haven't yet begun that journey or maybe want to change what they're doing with their life, is something that I went from the military to back to studying to working with someone else to now running my own shop, as it were. And believe me, the idea of, like you just said, what do I need to give up? What do I have to change? What do I no longer get to do? Because these are the things that can no longer be in my life or at least to a much less degree, if I want to achieve my next goal. I stopped playing rugby because I was like, I can't afford the evenings to train as much or at all because I have to be up early in the morning. And at the time I was like, but I've been doing this all my life. Well, guess what? If you want to put the hours in with your clients starting from early in the morning, you can't go and train in the evenings anymore because it just doesn't work. If you, hey, I used to own a sports car. I don't anymore because I needed the money as part of my early spending money, literally, when I moved to the UAE. That's 15 years ago. I bought my dream car at 24. Guess what? I sold it when I left the country because of people say to me, oh, put it in storage. Yeah, that costs money. It's like, no, it's an asset. It's potentially useful. Put it up for sale. That money funds the start of my new life, whether it's 6 months or a year. That's what the sacrifice you have to make.
It's just a sacrifice.
Yeah, so that would be something to take away if you're listening to this podcast. Don't be afraid to go, oh, but, no, if you want to make a podcast like I'm doing now, you're going to need to buy the right equipment. You're going to have to buy the right software and spend the time researching how to do it. And if that means, guess what? You don't go out with your friends on a weekend quite so much, or what you spending money on, like you said, like the extravagances, because you now have to buy a new laptop. You've got to buy X, Y, and Z. That's the things that people, I think, sometimes don't take seriously because they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to do all this. There are things that you can no longer do, or maybe you can't do right now because you've got to get to the next step, and that's very important. Don't
get me wrong, the Jimmy shoes are still in the wardrobe and I can still pull them out.
Hey, it's all good.
But I invested well.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's also something I take from what I deal with when I say to my all new clients, and I certainly said to you, and I'm sure you could say to people you work with, real world is always going to win out. You've got to think important, real world relevance. It's all very good having the Instagram dream and the shiny glossy thing and everything else, but guess what? You've got to live that life. You've got to live to get to that point. And I guarantee you, for a lot of people, the ambition's great, but along the process of trying to achieve it, you will find things that are maybe more appealing or you realize more important.
Quickly before we wrap up, I met a guy who is Mr. Dubai from 2019 until now.
Right.
Top model, UAE ambassador. His name's Max Fardan.
Right.
What a lot of people don't know about Max is where I met him. And in walks this guy. I'm at a cancer convention.
Right.
In walks this guy with his entourage. And I'm thinking, oh, sweetheart, you've walked into the wrong convention,
Wrong room.
Wrong room. No, he was in the right room.
Right, okay.
He had breast cancer by the age of 24.
Okay.
But they couldn't operate on him because he'd had a heart attack before that.
Right, okay. So you now can't have the drugs to knock him out.
Okay. So it went from stage 2 to stage 3 because of that.
Right.
And it was only when it was stage 3 that they were able to then treat him.
Mm-hmm.
But he now drives a Bentley.
Mm-hmm.
He hangs about with all the top designers. He's at all the top fashion shows. And the Instagram level is off the chart,
Of
right?
course, yeah.
You know, he's got like 250,000 followers. This is a guy from Uzbekistan, right? But what a lot of people don't know is his history, but they also don't know what he was doing at that time.
Mm-hmm.
He was working in a store, and then he was then going to work night shift as a security guard to pay for his treatment.
Right, okay.
Right? That, whenever you look at his Instagram, they've no idea. And whenever I actually sat and spoke with him about what people don't realise is whenever you're recording stuff like this or putting content out, the work that goes into that is huge. They just think, oh, it's just a quick podcast. Oh, it's just a quick post or whatever. But there's a huge amount of work that goes into that. But really interestingly, not a lot of people know his backstory.
Sure.
And the shininess, actually what happened behind that was a lot of blood, sweat and tears, literally.
Yeah, absolutely,
from
literally.
him. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good point to wrap things up, I think. So as we do with all of these podcasts, okay, I'll give you the floor and go, right, email addresses, social media, websites, everything to plug, promote yourself and let people find you in other spheres. Please fire away.
Sure. So you can follow me for a lot of free content on what I give away for students and parents. Instagram, Clearview with FJ. Website, www.clearviewwithfj.com, or you can email me directly, fj@clearviewwithfj.com.
Fantastic. FJ, as always, a pleasure, my dear. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
And we will put this up hopefully very soon online. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you in future podcasts.